Well, making trouble's fine. Just
listen. If nothing else comes out of this podcast, the show, I really want people to understand how great Carl Radle was and how important he was to not just Tulsa legacy. He was one of the great bass players, and in fact, he was recognized as such all the way through the 70s in the Playboy, bass.
In the Playboy, yeah. I did a couple of pieces for Huffington Post on bass players who belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and of course, I included Carl Radle. And one of the reasons I did that was, if you look at Eric Clapton's career, and even when you got to see Leon live, if the bass player doesn't appropriate Carl Radle's bass part, the song doesn't sound right. You can't play Bell Bottom Blues or Layla or any of those classics.
Exactly.
You got to play.
So what I did for a great bass player friend of mine and a recording engineer himself is I sent him the Mad Dogs version of Delta Lady, and I said, just zone in on Carl for this part. And he's like, it's as if Jamerson and McCartney got together and wrote a part together. This is what it would be like,
Yes,
so
yes.
It's in the pocket. It's melodic. It's pumping. It's really the glue that holds that band together, which is a huge band.
Do you think Eric would be open to doing an interview about Carl? I mean, Bobby Whitlock has done some on YouTube, if you watch Bobby Whitlock's channel. And
I got to say, Clapton was I didn't expect the kind of interview he gave me. It was about an hour long. He was extremely generous. He was not his cantankerous. He started off with a little bit of cantankerous sort of lockdown thing, which is, but not much. And then he spoke very emotionally about Carl.
Okay.
And he really wished he could have gotten to say goodbye to Carl before he left.
Right.
He said, Carl was like Jimmy Karstein, who came up with Carl as teenagers.
Yeah.
He said Carl was always the guy that had his shoes shined, always his shirt tucked in, always had gas in the car. He was the responsible one. He was the lookout for those guys when one guy was around the corner smoking pot with Gary Lewis and the Playboys. He was Mr. Straight Edge until he wasn't anymore, and he couldn't handle that lifestyle, as Teresa said. But I think Eric, if you could get him, he would love to speak about Carl.
Leon was always a very forward-thinking person. When he started doing the duet records with his wife, his interest in Lynn drums and synthesizers, and I think, as he progressed on, he was always looking for new sounds and new things to do. He wasn't content being the old Leon Russell from Carney or Shelter People or something like that. That's something that I found very, very interesting in the book.
Yeah, I went into this knowing some basics. Like, I knew the arc of Leon's story, and I knew, but I didn't know the extent of any of this stuff, of course. And the technologically driven Leon never stopped. I mean, he was always trying to think, and he was always an early adopter. He would pay $30,000 for back in those days for the top synthesizer just as it came out, top program, top Apple computer, whatever it was. He didn't really care if it was going to go down in price later. I mean, to me, like, in that way, what really surprised me was how, in listening to the music and the use of synths and in the earliest days of the 70s, it's sort of like what surprised me is I would never have put Stevie Wonder and Leon Russell together in the same exact column back when I was a kid listening to stuff. But I'm like, oh man, this could be. I mean, any of these songs could be on each other's records. This Masquerade could be a Stevie song.
Sure.
I mean, a Song for You could be a Stevie song. Some of Stevie's songs could be Leon Russell songs, not just from a songwriting kind of tradition, because that's there, the craftsmanship, but the use of the technology and where it sits even in the mix and stuff like that. So but Leon was the driving force behind Roger Lynn's. Like Roger Lynn told me, and for the book, he's like, I just had never thought. I had always thought of drum machines as this cheesy thing that you just kind of had to get around. But it was Leon who put this idea in my head of getting an actual drum sample and a programmable way to do this. And it's funny. I'm reading a book right now called Dilla Time, which is one of the most heralded rock biographies or music biographies this year. And it's about this hip hop producer, Jay Dilla. And it goes into the drum machine and it talks about Leon Russell. So, I mean, would you imagine reading a hip hop sort of history book in 2023 and having Leon Russell be sort of a pivotal figure in that? So yeah, the technology is definitely part of it.
Yes, it's a big part of it. Yeah,
and it became sort of it went from being a kind of an inspirational thing for Leon to sort of in my estimation, and that of even the musicians who we played with later on, it became sort of not a crutch, because that's probably not the way to put it, but it's more like he walled himself off literally and sort of metaphorically from the audience using technology, and he became way less of that guy that used to be the rock and roll preacher.
Right.
And he became more of the guy behind this wall and bank of synths there for a while. He definitely came back out of his shell before he passed, but there were many years there where he was just sort of trying to do as much as possible with one keyboard and one computer.
Yeah. Okay. And then, of course, we know Leon really, there is a second act in life, and that was so great for Elton to bring Leon back to prominence. I mean, he got him back on the map. He had a hit record with the Union, of course, and made all the rounds on the talk show. So it was kind of nice to see Leon take a victory lap in that sense. But again, he went off on his own. He didn't want to be the retro act that Elton and his manager want him to be. He still wanted to go out and be Leon Russell.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing with older artists, especially somebody that's as forward thinking. I think of Leon, you mentioned Bowie. Bowie's probably one of the most forward thinking artists of that era. But Mick Jagger, Mick Jagger never wants to look back in the rear view mirror either.
Yeah. No.
And it took them getting Don Was to sort of get them back, and Chuck Leavell in their band, to sort of bring them back to, well, you don't have to abandon the idea of being progressing, but you kind of at least you can't ignore this great past. They were ignoring 99% of their catalog or whatever. But Leon, I think Leon, by all accounts, felt so indebted to and appreciative for Elton for what he did. But yeah, he was not about to just go back to just being this, the Mad Dogs. Leon.
Right.
In fact, he wanted to do kind of a standards record. And as Elton said to me, Elton said to me, he wanted to do, I don't know, Georgia on My Mind. I said, no.